Make sure this is good. Nothing's muted. Everything's good.
Bop, bop, bop.
Shoobity boop. Scoobity bop. All right, here we go. Live on a
I'm trying to say,
Thursday. We are lifeless, wordless, lifeless. Shout out to Word Life, who will not be with us this episode. He has other business to attend to, but as they say in the
family
biz, the show
matters.
must go on.
My
Maybe
mothers
he's
keep
still
telling me
mourning
family matters.
yes, family matters. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I forgot to say. I got to send you a picture later, but maybe he's still mourning the unfortunate Game 7 loss by the New York Knicks, knocked out of the playoffs. They will not be in the Eastern Conference Finals. We already had Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Pacers, Celtics, and obviously that one went into overtime. Celtics win it. But the Knicks. The last time we were live, we were doing a watch party, more like a watch funeral for the Knicks season for Game 7. It was funny, though, because once we went off at halftime, and it felt like as soon as the half started, they started playing better, and they were chipping away at the lead. And I was like, yo, maybe we were like the bad luck charm. We got to stay off the internet. But that only lasted for a brief time, and then unfortunately, obviously, they were not able to sustain the comeback. It all became and once they went over the broadcast with the news that Brunson had broken his hand and would not be returning, then you kind of knew it was 100% over. And even if they had come back, you weren't going to have
Just to get
Brunson
demolished.
for the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't even know where. I don't know.
Honestly, that may have been more embarrassing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like trotting out there, um, Quentin Grimes,
Quentin Grimes.
Precious.
They wish they had Quentin
Well, Quentin
Grimes.
Grimes as well.
Miles
I'll
McBride.
forever. I will always confuse those two.
Yeah, I do.
Miles
I messed
McBride,
those up too.
DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Precious Achua, and Isaiah Hartenstein, with Shake Milton and Alec Burks coming off the bench.
Well, that's the thing. We don't even know that they would have had Josh Hart either. I mean,
That's true too, man.
they were just so ravaged and banged up that it was just kind of like a slow, sad, drowning death.
Yeah.
But I mean, they gave it a run. They gave it a hell of. They gave the fans a nice run, a hell of a season. I know people. There was this whole kind of debate after. Oh, how could the Knicks fans be happy? They're celebrating losing losers. Everybody wants to kind of have their take on it. But I feel like anybody realistic could look at
If you watched,
where the
yeah,
team ended up and understand that. Just have some perspective with these things when the expectations continue to, lower as you're losing players. So I don't really have any issue with Knicks fans celebrating this team and what they were able to do, and the resiliency that they showed even before the playoffs started, with the way that they played when OG wasn't available. Obviously, when Randall went down. I think they deserve a lot of credit, so I have no issue with Knicks fans applauding what the team was able to accomplish. But I think there's a lot of interesting off-season questions for the Knicks, because I still am not sure where I stand and how I feel about what their goal should be in terms of roster construction going into next year, because I know a lot of people just want to run it back. And on one hand, I'm kind of like, yeah, why not run it back? But at the same time, man, it's even had OG stayed healthy, Had Brunson not hurt his hand, not broke his hand, had Hart stayed fully healthy, I think they win that Pacers series, and I honestly think that they have a good chance against Boston. I'm not one who's fully sold on Boston at all, but there's still a part of me that feels like this run was a little bit of a one-off. I just find it hard to have a lot of confidence in building a champion or having a championship run that with the formula that they used to have this playoff run. I just feel like it's just really, really hard to do. I still feel like they kind of held it together with scotch tape and, bubble gum.
I don't know. I kind of think that was just they had to bring out the scotch tape and bubble gum in this sense, because honestly, I think you bring it back. I think the reason to bring it back, I think the reason why the fans acted like that, which anybody having a problem with that is, it's ridiculous in my mind, just because, in my opinion, only because either you're doing a thing because you don't know the reason why they did all of this. The reason why the fans acted like this is because they saw their players, their team, give it all that they had. Like, you had Josh Hart come back. We saw that he couldn't move at some point. He had the K tape all over his stomach. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, any other player wouldn't have played. OG Anunoby, he tried. Like, I don't know if,
Also,
it could have been him trying to.
how do you feel about that? Because a part of me feels like that was a mistake to even have him. We said it. We literally the first kind of couple possessions up and down the court. We both said it. It's on. It's available. It's recorded. We both were like, "Yo, this motherfucker can't move." Like,
Yeah, but the thing is, I think he had to do that for
really?
for that same reason. Not that he had to, but he
The
wanted to
fans?
show people. Yeah, for the fans, for everything, like for his team, like he wanted to show people that he's trying, like, because he does have that narrative out there, and like we haven't seen him in all since game two, so it's like, yo, like, oh yeah, this dude goes again, like it's like, yo, okay, I'll come in here and I'll hobble around. You saw that I tried, like, and I just couldn't go for you guys. And even if I did play, I either would have gotten hurt worse, or it would have just been like, I would have been embarrassed out there. So him doing it, like, although it was ridiculous for him to do it at the end of the day because of the end result, I think that he still had to show, like, he still wanted to show people that he tried. And this is the reason why I didn't play. You saw me out there. I tried. But that's what I like. Both for game 6, I would have been worse than that. For game 5, would have been even worse than that, and so on and so forth. So him showing that, it's like, okay, man, like, shit, like, this is all we have. Like, there's nothing else we can do. Like, this isn't this isn't load management. This isn't like players who don't want to play. Like, because that's the main, the big thing with the with the some of the uproar and the pushback with the fans right now is like, oh, I could have paid $2,000 for my son to see those, so on and so forth, and he sits down. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Yeah.
part of it, and that's part of the mentality. I think that's part of the mentality that they're trying to put ingrained in this team, because and Randall's another one. So I just think that it's a blown opportunity, only because if this team was at full strength, which a lot of the teams, even we can talk about. Well, the Pacers are probably the only team at full strength, besides Halliburton, who has his neck back, sciatica. He needs to go to Dr.
His
Shaw,
neck, his
all
back,
that.
his pussy, and his crack. That's what he
Yeah,
needs.
exactly. But only when he stinks up the joint, not when he's shimmying around and doing. 45 foot 3 point
Yeah.
attempts, 45 foot 3 point attempts that make it. But I just think it's like that's part of the reason like the fans were that like they saw it. They saw everything. They didn't need a a practice like a camera in the practice facility. They didn't need a camera in the fucking in the training room because they saw everything that they tried to do to put it out there. And even we're talking about even Jalen Brunson. It's like, oh, it's just like conveniently overlooked that his foot was all jammed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
So it's
thought he had
like,
a. I thought he was playing with a broken foot
yeah. So it's
or
like
some type of like
that's
not like some type maybe some type of fracture or something. Like I wouldn't be
yeah, like a
surprised if we
stress
find
fracture or
out
something
later.
like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But that's part of. I think that's the main reason why that because it's like it's the type of culture, the type of player they tried. They gave everything they had at the same time. Like I kind of don't agree because with you in the sense that this team was actually pretty deep, man. Like, and did lose a lot. They did lose a lot of games in terms of to starters and everything like that. And what sucks is that they couldn't work it, like they couldn't build up that chemistry even in like a losing effort. They kind of just like had to go like, kind of like next man up and kind of play with the rotations and everything like that. But it's like we're talking about Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo being 6 and 7 off the bench in in a perfect world. You know what I'm saying? So and in a health, and everybody's healthy. So and
I
I
think that's gonna
understand
be
what you're
interesting
saying.
too.
Well, yeah, because now they're like superstars, especially like in here. But that's kind of I don't know. I feel like depending on who they bring in, that's why they have to be very careful about who they bring in, because they do need to get bigger because um, they need somebody when they face
See,
Anthony
the thing is, I don't.
Edwards.
I think if you're telling me they're gonna have the full roster, I don't think they need to get bigger. I think they have enough. I mean, if you're telling me, you're giving me Randall, you're giving Mitchell Robinson, and you're giving me Hartenstein as your off the bench size, I feel like that's enough size. They don't. Why would what more do you need than
But
that?
but I mean like down
And you still have Ananobi too, who's I mean he's not a center, but he's a strong guy. He's as probably as strong of a three as you got in the
but the
league.
thing is it's like I feel like the Knicks at full strength they have two threes that are completely the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like you have the ball dominant, and not to say because Julius Randle is a dog. He does get in there. It's not
Oh,
like
you're
he's
making Julius a three,
yeah, because he's not. I don't know. I just think he's
but he's
always
gonna
been
be the
reluctant.
four. The
Well,
starting five at full health is gonna be Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, OG Ananobi, DiVincenzo, and Brunson.
I mean
That's the
yeah.
starting five they wanted to have.
Well, yeah. If we're doing the C P F S F S G P G, you know what I'm saying? But like it's going more positionless. It's like, for example, like you saw the all defensive team. Wait, was it the all defensive team or the all NBA team where it was just all it was all fives? Um, no, I think the defensive team was I think it was all fives. Um, so I just think you need the guy that can just be the athletic guy that could put up buckets, which I know Ananobi kind of is, but he's not that type of player. I feel like you need somebody like the one that they were mentioning, like DeJounte Murray. Like I feel like that's the type of dude that they need.
Yeah, but he's not
Like
size. He's a point guard.
yeah, but he's he's like 6'6", 6'7".
Okay, when you're talking about basketball players and you say a team needs size, you're not talking about 6'7". 6'7"
Well,
is
I
not
mean,
size in the NBA. It's
yeah,
size
but
if you're an old
I'm
lineman,
saying
but
no, no, no. But what I'm saying is to combat the scoring options of the great teams, like 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 Tyrese Halliburton, for example, right? He's the point guard, but how tall is he? You can't. DiVincenzo is a good defensive player, but he's not doing much on him. You know, uh,
so you saying
Tyrese Maxey.
they need bigger guards.
Yeah,
Because
a
when you
bigger guard.
that's why I'm saying you say they need size. I'm saying they have Mitchell Robinson, they
No, no,
have
no, no,
Julius
no, no,
Randle,
no,
they
no,
have
no, 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 no,
Hartenstein.
no, no, no. I'm not talking about the front court. I'm talking about size in the back court
I
because they just
got you.
have. You know what I'm saying? Like they need that big, like just to get in the way because you saw what happened, with like with all these like even like the Pacers highlighted everything. They have big dudes who can shoot over you, who can, they're gonna get rebounds. I know they have Josh Hart, which is he's an outlier in terms of getting rebounds at his height. But the thing is, it's like, for example, you see who's on the court right now for the Pacers, and it's Neesmith, Halliburton, and even though they don't have that top tiers, big, they still have a lot of size,
No, I mean
across.
I understand what you're saying, but the Pacers overall they play they're a smaller team. They don't even really have a real center. That's why they were getting killed on the boards. I mean, they play mostly guards. But I don't know that that's the way. I feel like that was the way that, due to the injuries, they had to play the Pacers at the Pacers pace and at the Pacers
I,
game. So they needed to play with pace and they needed to play with guards, and their guards are small guards. But I feel like at full health, you're not trying to outpace the Pacers. You're not trying to play that same
I,
game and run up and down the court with them with big guards and let's see who can do it better. I feel like
I guess I get it. I just didn't
at
see
full
it.
health, the Knicks are gonna go into the game against the Pacers with trying to be big. They're gonna play. They would have, like, Tibbs would have loved to have had Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle at his disposal. They wouldn't have even worried it. They could have had midgets at the guard position. They don't care about that. They don't care about who's gonna be, what the size of the guards are when they have the overall size advantage. But they just didn't
I
have
guess
the
I
healthy
mean
bodies to do that. So they had to
you're right.
pivot to playing Miles McBride and Josh Hart. Like, just because of the physical bodies they had available, that they had to play that style of play. But I feel like this team is constructed when fully healthy, a bigger team to get offensive rebounds. Obviously, that's like Mitchell Robinson's specialty. I think it's going to be interesting to see what. I think the number one question for the Knicks going into the offseason, I think, more so even than who they may add, is how. Because I look at it similar to the way I viewed the Timberwolves situation, because with the Timberwolves, I feel like the biggest thing that can get in their way right now is Karl Anthony Towns not understanding that Edwards needs to be the guy. If Karl Anthony Towns he thinks it's a 1A 1B thing, he's just going to get in the way. He's going to get in the way of their
mm,
offense, and he did it yesterday. I'm curious to see, like, you saw how well the Knicks played offensively with Brunson being the main guy with the ball. Not a lot of ball stoppage. He had the ball. He make a decision, passing the ball. The ball was moving. Everybody was moving. And obviously, as we know, one of the biggest criticisms of Julius Randle is that the ball ends up stopping when he gets it. He drew, the Randle handle, as they say. And
Yeah.
I feel like you would like to think that after watching this run, that he's going to come in and understand not to fuck up the flow. If they're going to run it
Hmm.
back, they got to run it back the way that
Under
they
those
played
circumstances.
the second half of the season. Yeah, exactly. Like
Hmm.
if they run it back and they're running it back like the first couple of months of the season style with
Hmm.
like if Randall
Boom,
kind of comes
boom, boom.
back and thinks he's going to be the guy, he's going to be pounding the ball like on offense. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. And I'm not one who
That
wants to say that they should trade him, but if that's the only way that he's going to be, involved, if he's just going to be like, because to me, if you could just take whoever was playing the four and slot in Julius Randle instead, like if you're upgrading from whether you want to say it's Precious Achua or whoever the case may be, upgrading from them to Randall just from a skill standpoint, but he's still doing those same things and not doing the Julius Randle handle things, then it's
mm,
good.
like
But if he's gonna be
yeah, do it.
stopping the ball, then you got a problem.
Yeah, because if it was just like, yo, add what Julius Randle does, like box score wise,
Yeah.
then you're cooking with gas.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
like you have yeah. So it's like one, it's that's one of the things that like is annoying that like I mentioned before that you weren't able to see all of it really in its full
Yeah.
form. Or B, maybe it was like a blessing in disguise if he does come back and see like, yo, oh, this shit kind of works, bro.
Yeah.
If I was playing, they'd have a decent chance to win the championship.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, to his credit, it did kind of feel like, and that's like you said, is kind of like the most fucked up thing about it was that it did kind of feel we didn't get to see it for sure, but in the small sample size, right before he got hurt, it did. I was starting to get the vibe, and maybe it's just me, but I started to kind of get the vibe that he was in the flow of things, that he was kind of
no,
not
he
not
was
stopping the ball. It
you
felt
know
like the arrival of OG Ananobi kind of gave him a little bit more. It was funny because I felt like it gave him a little bit more freedom with the ball because you no longer are trying to prioritize
I
giving
got my running
iHeart
mate.
and RJ touches. You've substituted them for somebody who doesn't need the ball in his hands in OG, but at the same time, it seemed like everything was kind of moving better, and it was still kind of flowing more primarily through Brunson, I feel like, but we didn't get a chance to really see it fully play out.
As a person who's watched so many bad games, so many games of the Knicks and bad basketball, bad like and knew what the tendencies was like of this team. I did see the difference. Where remember when I texted like uh how happy Julius was playing, even though they states, and of course he's gonna say that, but whatever. It's like that's the other thing. It's like you can love somebody, but know that like you're kind of like it doesn't work together. But
Yeah,
you saw how happy he was playing once RJ Barrett wasn't the three, like the number three on the team, and the number three was uh like a one man gang where it was like I'm an elevated 3 and D. It's like I'm not 3 and D off the bench. I'm starter quality 3 and D. And you just tell me what like I don't have yeah, that's you guys do what you got to do with the ball. Like yeah, I got enough score. We got enough scoring from you two, like with Randall and Brunson, and either DiVincenzo or three, like or any or like whatever other offense was coming. I did see the difference in him, kind of like not having to worry about his place as. I don't think the first year, like last year, I think it was like a battle to see who was going to be 1A, 1B. And I think Randall realized that the battle wasn't for one anymore. The battle was to see who was 2A and 2B.
Yeah.
And I think the battle with RJ Barrett to see who was 2A and 2B, plus the shit in the media where everybody was waiting for RJ Barrett to, the number 3 pick in the draft and all of that stuff that comes with it. I think that kind of like disrupted that as well. When you brought in OG Anunoby, he doesn't. He literally looks like he doesn't care. I don't care if I'm 5B, even though he's like the number 3. So
Yeah.
it's like you kind of like, because that's not the way he wins. RJ Barrett, the way that he wins, especially like as a young player, is putting up those numbers. You know what I'm saying? He has to be Shay. You know that I changed. I'm not Shy. It's Shay now. Um, it's not putting up those numbers. It's not doing all of this. Well, like for RJ Barrett, it's not doing all of the dirty work. It's putting up the numbers that get you the what a pro wants commercials. You know what I'm saying? It's like OG Anunoby couldn't care less. He has no tattoos, no like he doesn't talk. Like I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Like
I
he
don't think he
doesn't
speaks
have like
English.
yeah,
Like,
it's
all kidding
crazy.
aside, I think he does speak English,
No,
but
he definitely does.
I feel
He's
like
from
he
London.
doesn't speak English because you never hear him say anything. And his name is
Yeah, but
OG Ananobi, if we're being fair.
that's what's perfect, because that's why it was so perfect for a player like Julius Randle, where it's like, I'm still Julius Randle. That's Jalen Brunson, just like Luca and Kyrie, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's like, yo, it doesn't have to be one or two. We could both be ones, but just like, like he can, he's the one that's gonna put us in the place to be or whatever, or we all ride with him, and has that mentality. I think Randall does have a similar mentality, but just his mentality was more of a like an Allen Iverson type of mentality, Julius Randle, where it's like, I got to do all of this shit by myself. Like he has, like, it's a similar mentality
And to
where
be
it's like,
fair
I'm a
to him,
dog.
he did before all these other niggas got here. Like,
Well,
I think
yeah,
he should get
that's the
he
point.
should get the proper credit for being the guy who was like the first one on the boat to kind of fucking
Yeah.
start steering the ship in the right direction.
And that's the thing. It's like, that's what sucks about not being able to see it, where you can, like you're more definitive in what you need to correct going into the season next year. Like you said, I wasn't really like, I was going off what I saw, because like in terms of like needing more the backcourt size, but that's only because I didn't see I wasn't able to see the other the
Yeah.
full version. And like I said, like, you start putting that, like, when you have uh, Miles McBride um being capable, even Alec Burks to the 10th degree or whatever. When you push all those players down to where they were supposed to be slotted, this team had like a decent chance to win the finals, more than a decent enough chance to go to the finals at full strength, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only thing the only thing for me is that I feel like there also were a lot. This was, I don't know if this year in the East is going to be indicative of the next 5 years in the East, because
That's another
you
thing.
didn't have to go
You're
through
right.
Giannis. Giannis is somebody that needs to be dealt with typically. If you're going to try to get out of the East, you usually got to go through Giannis. That's a whole different animal than trying to go through the Pacers. Obviously, they weren't even able to get through the Pacers given all the injuries, but had them at full strength and the Bucks as full strength, particularly if we're talking about next year after, if if the Bucks end up fully running it back, and they,
But we
the
are talking
whole,
about Dame at 1 year older.
we're talking about Dame at 1 year older, but we're also talking about Dame with Giannis and not with fucking this guy.
Bobby Portis and Middleton,
No, well, I wasn't even gonna say them. I was gonna say
Robin Lopez.
C.J. McCollum, who was who was
Oh,
his when he
yeah,
was in his prime. That was his role. His
his
two.
his, his
I
Robin.
guess to be fair, I guess it was mainly LaMarcus Aldridge until he left. But
Mm.
you know, he's never had a teammate as good as Giannis. So I don't think you need prime Dame. And I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the Bucks never really seemed to kind of fully put it together this year, but similar to the way that the Knicks they dealt with a lot of in-season injuries and first year of a pair like that, kind of getting used to each other. I still feel like if Giannis plays in that series, the Pacers barely even got out of that series without Giannis. Like
Mhm.
like I said, weeks ago, they were out here losing games to fucking, Gallinari. So I don't think that the Pacers would have even made it out of the Bucks series if the Bucks were at full health. Um,
Yeah.
but next year, Giannis healthy, Lillard healthy, them having another year of getting used to each other, playing with each other, and whatever other tweaks that the Bucks make with their roster, that's gonna be a team that needs to be dealt with. Who knows what
The only
happens
thing,
with Philadelphia in the offseason? I mean, it seems
yeah,
like we kind of just take it for granted that Philadelphia is always going to lose in the first round because that's what they've been doing. But at the same time, if they could catch lightning in a bottle towards the end of the season next year, if they still have Maxey and still have Embiid, and if they have the if the health luck bounces their way, I can't say that they wouldn't be. It's if they bring back Oubre, because it seemed like towards the after the trade deadline. That's the other thing is like these teams that made deals at the trade deadline, they're still kind of integrating everything. So I feel like it'll be interesting to see what the Sixers come back with next year. Um, the Heat are always going to have to be dealt with. I don't know. We don't know what their offseason moves are going to be, but they're always kind of lurking out there. So, I mean, that's really what I'm thinking of in terms of running it back next year. I don't know that, like, if we're just looking at it in terms of what the field was this year in terms of the East, yeah, this Knicks team, this year's East, would have rolled through if they were at full health. But next year's East, I don't know that next year's East is going to be as easy as this year's East would have been. If you're talking about having to go through Giannis, if you're talking about having to go through, you know, a Sixers team that might be a pure example. We don't even know if Embiid would have played the whole season. The Knicks seeding wise wouldn't have been. We don't even know where they would have ended up. You know what I'm saying? So
the the only thing I will say is that you're getting it's valid. Like I think the Sixers are in a way better position than the Bucks are, only because they have the young guy as well. It's not just Embiid. It's also Tyrese Maxey who's still getting better and has that like pliability that like athleticism and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like we're still talking about Giannis, who the last few years, when it comes to playoff time, has been injured.
yeah,
When
I think that
Dame
that would be
Lillard,
an interesting series right there. Just if you take this year's playoff Sixers full health, this year's playoff Bucks full health, that's an interesting series right there. Like to take the youth of Maxi and even Embiid to a certain degree. He's not super young, but he hasn't really, as crazy as it sounds, he hasn't really experienced a ton of high leverage playoff basketball. Like he's always kind of been in and out. He's missed a
well,
lot of playoff games because he's been hurt.
and we see the type of person that he turns into when the stakes are ratcheted. Like if we're being honest, you saw like that game three, he was like having a meltdown. You know what I'm saying? And the Bell's palsy, like I thought it was something that was like that was you know
The game three when he
like
dropped 50.
no, yeah, well, yeah, the one that he was like that he started off the game, or like he injured fucking Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
He elbowed
Yo, I
Jalen
hate these
Brunson,
fucking Celtics, man. I fucking hate them.
the Celtics.
They're so garbage. Like everybody has been so the Celtics are gonna win the championship this year, 100%. They're about to be down at the end of the first quarter to the Pacers again. They fucking
Well,
suck.
you see, this is
Sorry.
what gets me mad. This is what gets me mad. Like people in the media, which I tweeted about it like after the game. People get are so that like they talk about how like, oh, we want the game, like, oh, these young bucks had, the 90s where the game, like, you guys wouldn't stand a chance back then, like the physicality and stuff like that. And then when a team like the Knicks is like demonstrating that, when you know uh that's the style of ball that they're playing, they root for the Pacers instead. Like that type of, like, run up and down the court, where, like, like, I guess that in that time it would be the old Denver Nuggets that would score a bunch of points, but play the soft version of basketball. Like, I don't get, like, you have a mentality with the Knicks team that is like, yo, we're not doing that load management stuff. We're playing every game. We don't care about, like, we'll line up like next man up, or we do all this stuff. Whatever. We're not making excuses. We're not doing all of that stuff. But then it's like, oh, we want them to lose. But when it's like, that's like they want that, but then when that appears, they don't want that. So it's like it's so strange to me. And like the Celtics are the same thing. Like, the only thing that, like, the past Celtics had was Marcus Smart. I guess they swapped that out with Drew Holiday, but it's still the same. Like, when it's crunch time, you see how they act. You see what they turn into. Like, I know Jalen Brown hit that three in crunch time, but you can't say that was like almost the equivalent of the Neesmith. No, not the Neesmith. The
Yeah, that Nemhard
the
prayer
the
of a
Nemhard
three.
the Nemhard three. It's like, yeah, you guys
Yeah, it
won.
was much more lucky than clutch.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, um, so what do you want? Like, do you want this, or do you want that? Like, don't tell me that you want this, and then when that comes, like, nah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't understand. Like, I'm fine with the point of view that you have. I just don't understand it when you do both.
Yeah, well, hypocrisy in the media is nothing new. We've been
No,
seeing that
no
for a long
way.
time. So, but speaking of that, the TNT, I feel like this whole TNT losing the NBA and the ending of the Inside the NBA crew and show. I know nobody wants to say it, or maybe nobody else feels it, and that's why they don't want to say it. But I feel it, so I'm gonna say it. I don't care. I don't. I think that this whole idea that the Inside the NBA crew and Chuck and Shaq and Kenny is this treasure that we cannot watch basketball without, as the most overrated thing I've seen in a long time. When it comes to, I just feel like it's like media just blowing each other. Like, yeah, they're fine, and they've been a staple of NBA coverage for a long time, and that's great. But you know what? I don't care that much. People have made this has become such a big talking point that so many different podcasts and television shows, and like they just want to make this whole big thing about, oh, where are they gonna go? TNT's gonna lose the broadcast. Where's Charles gonna go? Is he gonna go to ESPN? Is he going to NBC? We can't have basketball without the Inside the NBA show. I
This
don't
is
care.
everybody
I
wants.
will agree with everybody that it is probably the best in terms of studio shows doing doing any sports. I'll agree with that, but I don't. I no, the sport will go on. And to be honest with you, going back to your previous point, I don't even know that that's a bad thing for the sport, because we've reached
Get
a
away from it.
point where a lot of these old heads covering the game and being kind of the narrators and the storytellers of the game, we've gotten to a point where they at times can hold back the sport with their kind of archaic views and their egos. And honestly, I don't know that the NBA losing inside the NBA is not a net positive.
Yeah, that I
And
mean,
I know
I
nobody
agree
wants to
with you.
say that, oh, it's such a huge loss. Oh, inside the NBA, the greatest studio show, these guys, blah blah blah, it's the greatest thing ever. If we lose that, it's such damage to the NBA. I honestly don't know that in short order it won't be a net positive if they get a younger, more that can speak to a younger audience and that can move the sport into the future, instead of holding the sport back with Shaq talking about how my Lakers team would beat any of these teams that are playing today.
Mm.
I don't
Well,
need
you mean the
I
ones
don't need
that
so
you
much
mean
of
the
that.
ones that got beat
Yeah, the ones that lost to the Pistons in 5.
fake, or try to come up with a fake brand of the same show, and that's what you got to watch. Fine, if that's your fear, fine, because that's I mean, that's a concern that's probably going to be a real thing,
And
because
honestly, even that, who
there's
cares? Who cares?
yes. Well,
Is
I'm
anybody
saying
going to
if
tell me
that's
that TNT games rate better than ESPN games because they have a better studio show? Nobody
no,
cares.
that's
Ultimately, the
that's
rating is based off of the basketball.
that's the ridiculous point. But what I'm saying, if that's your fear, then fine. But don't tell me that you're either A, not going to watch, not going to be entertained, or somehow the game is going to. They don't offer insight. Like, as you we clearly see, like with a lot of them, which is why you get a lot of the fakes, like when you get somebody like Draymond Green, whose tactic is basically like, I'm just gonna say shit. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if I actually believe it. I'm gonna say shit because you know what? It worked for Chuck. I think
Yeah.
Shaq is more based on, like, I think Shaq, the way Shaq talks, it's like he was the greatest of all time. So like not I mean not the greatest of all time, but in terms of like he was the greatest force of all time. So you can't defeat me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, and
that
I
type
feel
of
like
style.
people, it's funny because I feel like people are scared to say what Shaq really is. Like, just because Shaq is like this immensely popular personality, I feel like that has become the it has led to him being as great as he was. It has led to him being talked about as though he's the great center of all time, which he's not.
There were so many years where it was like
But people
when he
like
went to
someone
he
I
was in
want
the
to know
Celtics, he was on the Celtics, he was
who
on the
was the first
Cavaliers, he was
person to assign to
Suns.
him the most dominant of all time, because that was marketing genius. Somebody
Yeah.
decided we're gonna call Shaq he's not the greatest big man of all time. He's not the greatest center of all time. He's the most dominant force in the history of the NBA, and that has
The big
become
Aristotle.
yeah, exactly. That has become like the go-to line, and it doesn't mean anything, because if I don't know anything about basketball, I'm just learning about the history of basketball. You're telling me, oh, that guy Shaq, he used to play. He's the most dominant force of all
Yeah, of
time.
course.
I'll
Look,
start
I mean,
asking,
look at
okay,
him. How
well,
could he not be?
yeah, and I'll be like, well, what did he do? Comparing him to the other centers, and I'll be like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. Explain. And no one will be able to explain, because
No,
there is no explanation.
well, because the explanation requires nuance. It's the biggest, dominant, powerful style big man in the post. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to
I don't
put
even know that you could say that. Was he that?
no,
Like, have you ever
but
heard
what
of
I'm
Will
saying,
Chamberlain? He scored 100 points in a game. When did Shaq ever do that? I don't think he did. I think scoring 100 points in a game, that to me is dominant. Nothing is more dominant than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had Kobe Ball Hogan, and I had Penny Hardaway. I mean, somebody,
Penny
if I
Hardaway.
and I didn't have any of these, but you throw me the ball in the post 50 times, I'm scoring 100.
That's a good Shaq. That's pretty good. I like that. That's a good Shaq. That's impressive.
But I'm saying like that's the thing. It's like it's whatever. He has that mystique. It's similar to Jordan. Like Jordan, like Jordan won every game he ever played. Jordan made every shot he ever took. He,
But to
you
be fair
know,
to Jordan, I gotta tell you, I try to do like I do like an audit of how I feel about Jordan, like every year or so, and like I remember when I was looking at like at the MVP potential MVP voting between Jokic, Luka, Shea at SGA, and I was like, and people are talking about the amount of games they played, looking at the stats, whatever, how many points they average. And I'm like, yo, I go look back and I like Jordan's everything holds up. Still holds up like cuz I think to myself like what you're saying like, and I'm not saying you're wrong because there is a mystique about Jordan that makes it seem as though he never missed a shot. Some of that is just outrageous and ridiculous. But at the same time, when I think to myself like people talk about Jordan as if he never missed a shot, never lost a game, and then I look at like, yo, like pure example, I look at like people talk about how easy it is to score today. Oh, it's so much easier to score in basketball than it was back then. And like it is, but Jordan still scored more than these motherfuckers today. Like it's crazy. Like that, like doing a full audit of the stats is wild when you think about it.
But I think what happens is like when people talk about 90s basketball, I think that the overwhelming sentiment is it was Knicks versus Heat, and that's not that's not necessarily true. I think we still have. I'd be curious to see what the overall points are back then because I remember some crazy like with
points
the
of,
Nuggets,
final scores?
Points per game, yeah, points per game and stuff like that. Because I remember games with the Nuggets. I remember the Sonics were pretty like high flying. There was a few teams that like put up points. So I think that when it comes to Jordan, yes, like they have the Jordan rules and all that stuff or whatever. But I mean, I just think that like it gets elevated because I think everything gets elevated because of what Knicks Heat and like that style and like the bad boy Pistons and like some of those Celtics teams. I think that makes everybody believe that the whole league was like that, and Jordan still scored all those points. And granted, he scored points on those teams, but the narrative of like I think that the narrative of those specific teams makes people think that it was impossible to put up numbers like that, and it makes Jordan's numbers seem a little bit more outstanding, just by that. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily at all that you're wrong, because obviously Jordan's a goat. I just like to argue. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, but you're not wrong because he does get mythologized, similar to the way that Shaq does when when people just immediately go to.
And Shaq was the other day. Yeah, Jordan has a little bit more.
Yeah, that's the other thing, and that's partially to Shaq's disadvantage too. All those those years that he spent hanging on, playing with the Cavs, and like you said, ending up like he's my favorite immaculate grid guy because he's been on every team. Like there's been so many times he's always crazy. Like when it's Celtics, Cavs, boom, I could throw Shaq in there. And you won't even remember that he was on either of those fucking teams. You see the Suns? Oh yeah, Shaq.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. But I mean, I don't know if I ever mentioned it. Did I ever mention it to you, or it might have been just me talking to my son? Did you ever watch that episode of or listen to the Pablo Torre finds out about the scoring in back in the 80s
I don't think
and
so.
the box scores and everything like that.
I don't think so.
Well, they actually found I forget who the player was. It was who was it? Nick Van Exel.
Oh,
And I
Mr. Quick.
remember, yeah, well, somebody, I forget who's, I don't know if it was the person they were interviewing, or maybe it was John Haverstraw, where they were saying,
John
was it John Haverstraw?
Haverstraw.
John Haverstraw. Now, that's definitely somebody from The Office. Um, uh, what's his
Tom.
Haverstraw? What's his first name? Tom Haverstraw. John, Tom, Bob, same shit. Um, well, they had like his favorite player was Nick Van Exel, and they went back to a game versus the um was he? I don't know if he was on the. I don't know if he was
Lakers?
on the Lakers. Or whatever. It
Rockets?
doesn't matter. I get bogged down by that. But the point was he had a night where he had like 22 assists, or maybe the score the guy who was doing the scoring for the Toronto Raptors was a fan of Nick Van Exel, and he gave him 22 assists. And then when Haberstroh watched the game, it was like it wasn't. It was like he passed it to somebody, and then somebody else. Like he passed it to somebody, and then somebody else passed it to the guy who scored, and they still gave it to Nick Van Exel. And then they went back and they actually ended up finding the person who was doing the scoring for the Toronto Raptors back then. And he basically was like, yo, these games aren't really on TV, but we'll get on Sports Center if, Sharif Abdul-Rahim or Vince Carter or somebody like that gets 23 rebounds in a game. Like they'll show highlights of the game. And when those two teams, specifically the Canadian teams, were in the league, like that's all they cared about was like being talked about on ESPN. So they were basically incentivized to do to kind of pad the stats. And what they did was also it was like they went into it and they were like, yo, you like a lot of these games you can't watch even from the 90s. We think that was like the other day, but some of these games there's no footage of these games. A lot of these games, like some of them, they had to be streamed by, like they had recordings of like illegal pirate streams from like Serbia and like
That's great.
Eastern European teams, and that's how they were able to get their hands on like recordings of these games. Like if you try
And
to
that's how we
find
ended up
some of
getting
these,
Jokic.
oh yeah, well there you go. I mean, but it was on the same tape. It was dubbed. That's why you couldn't see the game. But like on the videotape.
They
But
recorded over it.
yeah, yeah, they recorded over with Nikola Jovic highlights, and they thought they were watching the Toronto Raptors, the Raptors versus like the Cavaliers back in
Yes.
'98, and because they still had the writing on the label that it was that game, but it was Jokic highlights. But anyway, what they ended up doing is like there was so little evidence of all of this stuff. They ended up taking a lot of the stats and comparing it to like home and away stats,
Yeah.
and like the discrepancies between blocks, rebounds, steals, home and away, right, were like 20-25%, even 30% of differences, where it threw all of that, like Michael Jordan, all of that stuff, Larry Bird, all of that stuff, all the defensive players specifically, and all the players who did all the like dirty work type of stats that got the All NBA, all defensive team, and all of that stuff. It put that into question. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I remember
You
they
gotta
did.
watch it.
I think it might have been Tom Haberstroh that did this as well, but I know that somebody did an audit of exactly what you're saying, but just more recently with Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies because
That's
he
what
was
started it. That's what started it.
that was what started it. Yeah, because I remember that he had like an abnormal disparity between his home blocks and away blocks, but they went back to see and they found out that like it was legitimate. He was just playing because now it's obviously so much easier to go and look. Like you can literally go and see that. You can literally go and see any stat recording on NBA.com, which is amazing.
Well, that was the genesis of all of this because it was, oh no, this actually did happen, but like they found somebody who was the official scorer for funny enough, it was the Grizzlies. Obviously, back then it was Vancouver, but um, where they found this dude, and he was like he pretty much admitted, and he ended up going into analytics for another team. No, for the 76ers, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy he put it all out there, man. You can probably find that pretty easily. It's very very interesting, and it throws everything in a skeptical light. And it's not like they're not trying to be those guys, but it's like, this was out there. It's like it's the same reason why they say, oh, Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth would hit these 600-foot.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite myth is the home runs that they used to hit that were from the hundreds and hundreds of feet. Yo, come on, man.
Yeah, people still believe these stuff. Balls were wrapped in feathers wrapped in leather, and their bats were like when Homer Simpson made his baseball bat out of the limb that fucking. In the episode of The Simpsons,
yes.
the limb that fell off from the lightning, and he did it in his garage and made that bat. That's the bats they were using back then. There's no way physics allowed for a ball that was probably thrown at 85 miles an hour, softer ball, softer bat from lower quality wood. Though the swing speed that they were swinging.
Tell me that Babe Ruth didn't have the exit velo that Giancarlo Stanton did? He had at least twice he was hitting. It was like 200 miles an hour the exit velo for the Babe Ruth shots.
Well, it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to combat those facts. I'm just trying to apply physics and what science would dictate without having the actual scientific data put together. But just in terms of everything, all those things line up where like they have these the bats that they use now are like curated. They're weighted. They're like you go to labs. Every baseball player goes to a lab. Have you seen any of that before?
Yeah.
These baseball players go to a lab.
They have a lot of that stuff on the MLB app.
Yeah, because I the only reason I saw in depth was because I saw the one on Julio Rodriguez, where he went to the lab. And like they gave him all of these bats and this and that and all the analytics and all of this data that they had to sculpt this bat. There's no way that Babe Ruth was the way Babe Ruth picked the bats. This is how Babe Ruth picked the bats that he was going to use in games. He'd pick one up, do one of these. He'd pick another one, do one of these and one of those, and be like, oh, this is it. And then just grab it and swing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
all while eating hot dogs and drinking beers and all that shit. I saw that. It was funny because I was listening to. I have it on my phone. I gotta pull it up. But I was listening to this, Mad Dog, and he was talking about that there was some book that had just come out that was talking about Babe Ruth and talking about specifically about his diet, and he's reading off this ridiculous diet. He's reading this shit like it's real. And he's like, he did all that. The Babe. The Bambino. and he still hit the home runs. And I'm sitting there like, this motherfucker really believes this fantasy bullshit?
This
That this nigga,
mythology.
he woke
Like,
up
my nigga, like,
and he drank a gallon of milk a day. Like, no, it's not physically possible. Like, it's ridiculous.
yeah.
So, like, the shit he was saying was
It's so it's like
absurd.
you might as well believe Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this shit is wild stuff. But anyhow, we will see what happens with these Knicks. We'll see what kind of offseason moves they make. We will see if the Jalen Brunson discount contract is a reality.
That would be crazy.
It would be. It would be crazy.
Which also,
some of the speculation about why was even crazier. Don LeGrec out here talking about how, what it's going to be is they're going to give the money to his dad. His dad's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the league.
This is like, that's like, for example, like that's the less realistic version of remember when Andre Kirilenko
AK-47
signed that contract with
his wife?
with Brooklyn. Well,
remember, didn't he have some crazy shit with his wife that he could cheat or something like that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, not in depth, because Andre Kirilenko wasn't somebody who I was dedicating a lot of time to fact checking.
Well, shame on you.
Well,
no, I
remember
you
when
just say his name and I just remember those are the two things that come to mind: AK-47, and he had some weird arrangement with his wife. I don't remember what it was.
Remember when there was? I don't even know, because it was such loose speculation and just like tiptoed around. When who was the? I had the name. I just had the name and I lost it. For the owner, the Russian owner of the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, Mikhail Prokhorov.
Alexander Mikhail Prokhorov. Yeah. Where they said like, oh, he's signing this contract.
Maybe that's why they traded for Mikal Bridges with the same first name.
They thought they were gonna get the same deal.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much, they were like speculating that, oh, he just signed this contract, but in Russia, they're gonna, go back ways. As ridiculous as that is, I can actually believe that that is a thing that could happen. Based on like the shady shit that goes on over there. But do you think nobody's gonna come into contact with the tax information of Rick Brunson, who's making more a year than what he made in his fucking NBA professional career to be an assistant coach?
No one's going to know, because this is a well thought out plan how they're going to circumvent the luxury tax of the salary cap. They've thought thought all these things through, clearly.
Oh, they just got to keep it on the low.
And Tibbs is gonna sit back while Rick Brunson makes 3-4 times his salary, and Tibbs is just gonna sit there, cool.
This nigga gonna sit in his seat.
Yeah, so absurd. So
Ridiculous.
I have here Andre Kirilenko. Once a year, he can have sex with another woman. That was the deal.
Nice.
That was the deal. She calls it Andre's allowance, Chad Nielsen wrote for ESPN in 2006. Once a year, he can have sex with another woman. One night, no affairs, no divided loyalty. She can live with that. It was her idea, offered as a gift.
Well, I mean,
that's some gift.
Is it really one, though? It's not one.
It's one. That's
like you can, yeah, but the deal is one, but he probably is like, that was the one. You know what I'm saying? And
are you questioning the integrity of Andre Kirilenko? Is that what you're doing right now?
No, you're right. What? I'm sorry that I accused him.
What do you think he is? You're talking about him like he's an NBA player.
Possibly, yeah, exactly. Possibly, maybe trying to circumvent the salary cap by taking money in what is it, rubles over there?
Rubles.
Is it yeah. In rubles or from from Prokhorov, and B, uh, maintaining his strict hall pass allowance to only one marijuana, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty ridiculous. I mean, speaking of of taking the payment in rubles, I wonder how all the pro athletes who thought they were so smart like 5-6 years ago, hey, I'll take my contract in Bitcoin, please.
Oh
Wonder
my
how
goodness.
wonder how those guys are doing, because I know that
Who was the
that
big?
became
Who
a
was the
trend
big
for a
guy?
little while. I forget who was like
Was
the
it Jared
face
Allen
of that.
or Karis LeVert?
I don't
It was a
remember.
net. It was a net. It was a Brooklyn net.
Yeah, I part of me feels like I feel like Odell Beckham had something like that too.
Yeah, I think he did too.
I think his contract with the Rams was like all in
It was the
Ethereum or
yeah.
something.
It was it was a Ram as well. Or
Pay
Chargers.
me in pay me in
Dogecoin.
in what the fuck was the name of the yacht club? So what were those NFT something yacht club? I can't remember. Good Gorilla
No,
Yacht Club or some shit. I can't remember what the name of that collection of NFTs
Gorilla
was.
Yacht Club.
No, he had one of those NFTs as like his profile picture on Instagram. But anyway.
With the apes or whatever?
Oh yeah, but I feel like it was. I keep wanting to say bathing ape, but I know that's not what it is.
Yeah.
Like I just feel it was something. It was something yacht club. I can't remember what it was. Let me see. Let me do a quick Google search here.
Yacht Club.
It was Bored
How many?
Ape. Bored Ape Yacht Club.
That sounds like a shitty fucking 2014 like streetwear brand.
I mean, essentially, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, and the shirt is the shirt with the logo on it is probably worth more than whatever the coin is worth.
Yeah, those. I mean, those were the shit for a little while, but I don't know. It's a new day. It's a new day. But anyhow, do we have anything NFL? I think it's a quiet week in the NFL. Nothing too.
Why week in the NFL? They got OTAs. We got Aaron Rodgers
I feel like
spinning
it's
it.
the calm before the storm.
It really is. I mean, because we still have the
Aaron
playoffs
Rodgers?
going on.
Did you just say Aaron Rodgers?
Spinning it.
Oh, we're not doing Aaron Rodgers, are we?
No, God, no. God.
Because I could do months of shows on Aaron Rodgers, but
Yeah, but the thing is, that's exactly what he wants, and that's exactly what people hate but do.
well, it feels like nobody's doing it.
Yeah, because
I feel like it's
maybe
gotten
they're
to
just,
the point where nobody's doing it.
Well,
Because his appearance on Tucker
let's get to-
Carlson was something. That was something.
let's get to June and July first, when all of this playoff, Caitlin Clark, finals,
Liberty
Stanley
took a
Cup.
loss today, just now.
When,
Good
once
for me
that's
because
over,
I had Chicago.
Mm.
Chicago. I had Chicago plus 16 and a half. Half unit on the spread, half unit on the money line. It wasn't even a sweat. They won by 10. Beautiful. My WNBA cap is unmatched.
Yeah, but yeah, man, throw them picks out, dog.
What, my WNBA
You could be
picks?
like, yeah, you could be
the only reason I haven't thrown
this
them, I want to get at least I feel like once each team has played a good 5 games, I'll feel like things have been good to start the season. I've like the caps that I have hit. I've been on fire, but it's still too early in the season. I don't want to put that shit out there and have other niggas
yeah, but
losing money.
just put it on wax, nigga. It's just about putting it on wax.
I have them saved. I have them saved in different picks
Yeah,
apps and shit
but
like
that's like,
that. What picks
but
apps do you
but
use?
you know what that is though. No,
What is
I
that?
mean, I don't keep track of any of that shit. Like in the like, I haven't had time. Like my shit is so hectic with my kids that I can't. Like I haven't even been able to send an email to DraftKings because for some reason it's putting me my location for like a week now that my location is not within like New York for some reason,
It's because
and I haven't been able
all
to
those
even send it.
hidden servers you be using, all those illegal,
Oh
all the
yeah,
illegal
there you
stuff
go.
you got going on. Come on, don't
Yeah,
blame
when I
DraftKings.
yeah maybe I need to stop watching Hungarian power slap leagues and maybe my shit
Yo, that
maybe
power
my shit
slap shit, I can't with that shit. They be wildin'.
uh
Oh, Boston
yeah
finally deciding to play. Please don't fuck up
the
my first half. This is my biggest bet of the day. If they fuck up my first half cover, I'm gonna be so pissed.
my Croatian wife toss fantasy team is
Oh my God, Croatian
and
wife
it's as
toss.
ridiculous as that sounds as
It's
like
real.
me just it could no it could be real. It could be real.
As ridiculous as it sounds, Netflix just picked it up for, for a
Hey,
live.
you got a show on your hands, buddy.
Oh man.
I've got the intellectual property locked up.
Oh man, I love that. All right, so slow NFL, not a lot going on. So I
No,
think that's the show. I think that's the show for this week. I think that's all that needs to be
yeah.
said. We'll wait
Well, that needs to
for
be said.
Word Life's return next week.
Oh,
If we
we gotta get your quick take on the Rangers and the Stars, you know,
Well, tonight the Stars are
series
playing
is
Edmonton, and I got this. I got
yeah.
Edmonton as a dog. I
You
mean,
got it. Oh, okay. You got him as a dog. Okay, because
I'm
I have
taking Edmonton.
got you. Is that because of the price, or is because that's what you believe is going to happen?
Well, it's both. I had Edmonton to win the cup to start the year. That was my future.
Okay.
Did not look good when they lost like fucking when they lost like 15 in a row and fired their coach. I didn't think that was gonna work out for me. But I mean, I think that while the Stars are a really good team, I still I don't I think it's gonna be hard for them to stop Edmonton's top line. Edmonton's top line is a beast to deal with, and if the top lines are going to
Mhm.
dictate that series, I don't think that they should be dogs in the series. I just feel like if you're telling me I could have Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, and Connor McDavid at plus money, I'm just going to take that every time until proven otherwise. Like I'll live with it if they can't get it done. I definitely am at least taking them game one. Because if they win game one, then they probably won't be a dog for game two.
Mhm.
Or they won't be a dog in the series if they win game one, of course. But I don't know. I feel like Edmonton's going to be a tough out this year. The Stars, I don't know. They just haven't impressed me. They beat a Vegas team I feel like nobody is hungrier than Edmonton right now because that trio right there, Draisaitl, Hyman, and McDavid, they know that their window's closing, and they haven't even gotten to a cup final, let alone won it. And the Stars still have a lot of youth on their team. They'll be back next year no matter what happens. Where Edmonton, like they got a new coach. I don't know, man. I just feel like they're the hungrier team. The Stars beat the Stars beat the Golden Knights, but the Golden Knights won last year. They weren't coming with that same type of fire and hunger
And
that
they don't
I
have
think.
that hunger.
Yeah.
It's similar to what the Nuggets. feel like that's similar to what
Yeah,
happened
no,
to the
exactly,
Nuggets, man.
100%. That's the perfect comp right there. Is the Nuggets, like, while they still looked the part, like the same way that Vegas did. Say Vegas had they played the same kind of salary cap games with Mark Stone that they did, pulling him out of nowhere right before the playoffs start. They made some trades, but it just didn't work out for them. But I don't know, man. I just feel like what it's going to come down to for Edmonton is how terrible is Skinner going to be, their goalie. Like, if he's going to be just letting in softies over and over again, then they're going to be in trouble. But if he can at least do a decent job and, not give up anything easy, I think that they're just going to dominate the puck, man. I just feel like I don't know. I'm taking I hesitate just because I know I'm biased because I like McDavid. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I like McDavid. He's my favorite player to watch.
There's no such thing as like non-biased, like, journalism, commentary anymore. So you don't have to apologize for that because
I still pride myself on objectivity. I won't call myself a McDavid fan, but I know that he's my favorite player to watch. So I know that bleeds into it but it is legitimate. I mean, they are a legitimately good team. They had one of the most impressive win streaks. I think they won like 20 straight games or something insane like that. So but yeah, and then as far as the Rangers and Florida, obviously a tough loss in game 1. I feel like a lot of people feel like the Rangers are dead. I don't think so. I think the Rangers will still be heard from in the series. Florida's a good team, but the Rangers could figure something out. The Rangers are going to be a tough matchup for them because they just I think what's going to be interesting now is the to Rempe or not to Rempe.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was
I don't know.
wondering about, is Rempe going to play the first game?
No, and like how you were saying the other day, where it's like, where James Johnson is the Rempe of the NBA.
Yeah.
He might have to show that he's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if that's an adjustment that they make after game 1. Because to be fair, they got to figure out a way to put more shots on goal, man. They're not gonna beat the Panthers playing this selective shot, waiting for the right moment. Like, the Panthers are they're not gonna give you that opening.
No, man, and you're gonna waste a bunch of 70% opportunities because you're looking for the 95% opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, Doug, you're not going to be within 15 feet, 10 feet wide open. Like, and even, this again, I just started casually watching hockey, right? But I can see, like, just by the way that the Rangers have been playing and like when teams are playing well and when they're not, like, they're like the way that they've been even handling the puck when it comes in off passes or longer passes and stuff like that. Like, they haven't been clean on that. Like, every time, I just feel like every time they shoot, they take too long to kind of like set up the puck when they're trying to shoot. Like, their defense is like they're whiffing a lot, like, because throwing the stick out, and like they're whiffing where, like, like the Panthers, it just felt like every time they threw the stick out, they were stopping whatever the Rangers were trying to do. Anytime anybody threw the stick out, like, like overextended and stuff like that, and it just didn't look. It just looked stagnant. Like, it looked like, it just looked like they were trying to do that, like, knock them out, like ground and pound, knock them out, drag, dribble the ball out of the air, like that type of game. And they were just kind of like waiting around too long. And it's like, yo, dog, you're letting, like, they were like there was this much room and they were waiting for this much room. But in the time that they were waiting for that much room, the room went from this to this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it was
it's
just
gonna
like,
go
it
in the
was like,
opposite
yo,
direction.
yeah,
Exactly.
man,
Like
like
if you
this,
see
like this
if
is
you see if you see a if you see 6 inches of space, you got to try to hit those 6 inches and not wait for a
yeah,
foot of space because the foot of space is not
yeah,
coming.
man. This is yo, y'all the last four teams. Like, there's no like this is not like waiting for the perfect. You're not facing the Colts. You're not facing the fucking you know a shitty fucking football team. Like, you're not waiting to like dink and dunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to score a touchdown. You can't play for
Yeah.
a field goal. And it just feels like playing for field goals too much. Like, it's a different game. Like, when it's down, like when you're facing the Chiefs, it's not going to be fucking 14-10 the final score. When you're
Yeah.
facing the Dolphins, it's not going to be fucking 7-14. You got to put up points.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they can defend home ice. Hopefully we can keep even though the Rangers, even though the Knicks are out, we can keep some good vibes in the Garden. Hopefully, I don't know. The thing is that like I hesitate to be like they need to change their style of play because obviously their style of play is what got them here. So who am I to say that they need to play a different way? But it's gonna be tough, like you said. It's just gonna be tough if they don't find a way to kind of increase the intensity, increase they need maybe if it's not even just as changing a style of play, but just within the style in which they play, just increasing the sense
Muck
of
it up.
urgency. Because it just felt like they didn't really have. I don't know. I just don't feel that same sense of urgency when it comes to trying to put pressure, trying to score goals, trying to capitalize on every little opportunity. It's like these windows are small, so hopefully they can.
Well, yeah, because it just seemed like they were like, because of the style of play that I'm not gonna speak as like I've seen this shit, but like the style of play that everybody talks about, the Panthers is like being that like chippy team and doing all of this shit, right? And then you have the Rangers who like thrive on power play, which they didn't, by the way, in my Stubat's Andy Reid Mahomes prediction voice. Um, like I think they were expecting more power play attempts because of like the style that the Panthers play,
Yeah.
and the Panthers were. I don't know. It just didn't seem like that's what they were doing. Like I said, I didn't watch the full game, but it just seemed like they were just playing regular hockey. But I guess like the Rangers felt like that's what they were going to get. They were going to get more opportunities on the power play, and they didn't come around that often.
Yeah, I think that it seems like that's what they're doing. Like they're just waiting for the power play, but it's just like you can't wait around for the power play, especially not in the postseason, and especially not against the Panthers team they're not waiting around for you. Like they're gonna do all their little things that nobody likes. But
They're not. The Rangers aren't good. Besides that game, the game six or whatever. Like they're not good at like. Let me say they're not good. They're way better playing ahead. And I know that obviously that's easy to say, but it just feels like when they're up ahead and they're playing looser, as opposed to like trying to grind it out because they have Shesterkin, like it kind of like plays to their detriment.
yeah. But I'll give you a WNBA for tonight. Obviously, we already had the first two games already played, but we still have a 10 o'clock game between the Washington Mystics and the Phoenix Mercury, a Phoenix Mercury team that's trying to do better this year than they did last year. They were one of the worst teams in the league last year. And a Washington Mystics team that's kind of in the reverse, where they were a playoff team last year and this year have a very far different looking team. They kind of are in a little bit of a rebuild. They don't really have a ton of star power on their team. So I'm going Mercury first half. Currently, the line I'm seeing here on FanDuel first half
DraftKings.
line. I'm looking on. I've turned to FanDuel for my WNBA because they don't. DraftKings stopped doing same game parlays for WNBA.
Really?
I don't know why. Last year I did all my WNBA betting on DraftKings, but for whatever reason this season, like you used to be able to maybe because I just was kicking their ass. Maybe they were just like, whoa, we gotta stop this. But like you used to be able to parlay like. Honestly, it was easy money parlaying like a couple of players, alt PRAs were like just so easy to do. Now you can't parlay anything same game. You can only do like team total like first half, but you can't do any player props. So that's why I've turned to FanDuel to do most of my WNBA betting because they let you parlay multiple player props in the same game parlay. So, but yeah, first half spread -2.5. I love that for the Phoenix Mercury. I just don't think that the Mystics are built like that. But the one person who the Mystics have that's putting up points is Ariel Atkins. She's like really been kind of their offense. They're running a style of team. They're running a team and a play style where it's just like they're just trying to fire up a bunch of threes and see if they can try to win a game that way. It just feels like so. I like Ariel Atkins. Oh wow, her points line moved from 14.5 to 15.5, so they're on to us. I still like it at 15.5. I still like her over 15.5. I'm a little cautious. I might rather do her over 1.5 threes, and give a little bit of juice. But just that's how she's gonna. Even if she doesn't get to 15, like if she does get to 15, it's gonna be through 3-4 threes maybe. So maybe even a ladder if you wanted to do 2 threes, 3 threes, 4 threes, but. On FanDuel, you can parlay threes and points and shit like that. I might do a alt line and Shakira Austin over. What's her rebounds at? 6.5, 7.5. Shakira Austin, 7.5, over 7.5 rebounds. I like her too. Those are my WNBA plays for the night. My Angel Reese came through for me with the Chicago Sky and took care of the Liberty. I still love the Liberty, but I had a feeling this was a tough spot for them. So, but that's the show. Until next week, we will be back with Word Life, hopefully. Until then, you already know.